Elitists, neocons, neolibs, globalists and narcissists, oh my. What are they, who are they, and why should I care? Elitists, neoconservatives, neoliberals and globalists are all social and political ideologies that hold distinct beliefs and values. Knowing the differences is essential to starting a thoughtful discussion. Elitists believe in the rule by an elite class of individuals who supposedly possess the knowledge and expertise to govern society. They tend to favour a small, powerful government that is controlled by a small group of educated and wealthy individuals. Elitists often see themselves as the only ones capable of making the necessary decisions to run society effectively. We all may think that we know what elitism is, or that we can recognise or just somehow know or feel who an elitist is. To be sure, elitism is the belief or notion that a select group of people have an intrinsic special quality, high intellect, wealth, power, notability, special skills or experience. These so-called elites are considered by some to be more likely to be constructive to society as a whole, and therefore deserve influence or authority greater than that of others. The term elitism may be used to describe a situation in which power is concentrated in the hands of a limited number of people, the elites. Sounds familiar? Beliefs that are in opposition to, contrary to, or in contrast with elitism include egalitarianism, anti-intellectualism, populism, and the political theory of pluralism. Following is my ever-growing and changing list of specific elitists and groups perceived to be elites, in my opinion. Specific elitists: William F. Buckley, Michael Bloomberg, Hillary and Bill Clinton, John Edwards, Milton Friedman, Matt Gaetz, Alan Greenspan, Al Gore, Friedrich Hayek, Michael Kinsley, John Kerry, former Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State. You may enjoy my YouTube vlog on the Super K. Emmanuel Macron, French President Ayn Rand, failed philosopher and absolutist, President Ronald Reagan, Mitt Romney, wealthy Mormon governor and unsuccessful presidential candidate, Margaret Thatcher, Mark Zuckerberg and executives at Facebook, Meta, Google and Yahoo. General elitists: any member of the Adam Smith Institute, the corporate elites including Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg and heads of multinational corporations, the oligarchs, Russian but also Western. The academic elites, oh, don't get me started. Medical opinion leader elites at major medical centres, universities, JAMA, NEJM and government think tanks like the CDC and NIH, most members of Congress and the Supremes, all royalty monarchs, oligarchs, most members of organised religious upper levels including Joel Osteen, many A-list entertainers and all attendees of Met Galas. Let me know if I missed someone you think should be on my list of elitists, or if you disagree. Inside my group of overall undesirables, in addition to elitists, I add the group the Neocons, those titular conservatives who nevertheless believe in foreign intervention. Neoconservatives typically advocate the promotion of democracy and interventionism in international affairs, including peace through strength, USA involvement in proxy wars, and are known for espousing disdain for communism and leftist political radicalism. In their actual policies, neoliberals focus on privatization of state enterprises, liberalization of trade, massive tax cuts, reduction of social services and welfare, anti-union drives, and generally the downsizing of government at all levels. The negative outcomes of these destructive policies are evident. Neoconservatives, the Neocons, are a political ideology that emerged in the United States in the 1970s. They are characterized by their support for a strong national defense, interventionist foreign policy, and a commitment to American exceptionalism. Neoconservatives tend to be more hawkish on foreign policy and often advocate for increased military spending and intervention in other countries. You may find the diagram of Neocons by Peter and Maria Hoey, with comment by Jeet Heer, published in the 2008 Washington Post, to be helpful. That extensive chart traces the history of neoconservatism from Leo Strauss and Leon Trotsky to the Bush White House. The chart accompanies a review of Jacob Heilbrun's book, They Knew They Were Right, The Rise of the Neocons. Prominent neocons include Elliot Abrams, foreign policy expert Michael Bloomberg, Paul Bremer, diplomat, including post in Iraq James M. Buchanan, Robert O'Brien, Bolton's disciple and successor as National Security Advisor Senator Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, former Vice President Elliot A. Cohen, John Hopkins, SAI's Professor Senator Tom Cotton, a Bill Kristol protege Paula Dobriansky, of the foreign-funded Atlantic Council Mark Dubowitz, CEO of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Eric S. Edelman, Johns Hopkins SAIS, Evelyn N. Farkas, failed congressional candidate and executive director of the McCain Institute, Milton Friedman, Alan Greenspan, Senator Lindsey Graham, Royal Mark Gerecht, former CIA Friedrich Hayek, John Herbst of the foreign-funded Atlantic Council Brian Hook, Special Representative for Iran, David J. Kramer, former aide to John McCain, Michael Kinsley, Michael McFaul, former ambassador and MSNBC fixture, Richard Pearl, Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State Donald Rumsfeld, former Secretary of Defense Ronald Reagan, former president, proponent of the trickle-down theory that was targeted to, but didn't work well at all for working-class people. A great communicator of often simplistic and seemingly self-evident policies, which in many cases had harmful long-range results. I know, there I go again. Margaret Thatcher, former Prime Minister of the UK, Paul Wolfowitz, former Deputy Secretary of Defence Ambassador, Dean of John Hopkins SAIS, visiting scholar at American Enterprise Institute, need I say more, David Wormser, a former advisor to John Bolton. Another group on my list of those to be disdained, avoided, doubted are the neoliberals. The neolibs can be loosely defined as generally associated with the 20th century resurgence of 19th century ideas associated with free market capitalism. Neoliberals advocate potentially ruinous policies of economic liberalization, including privatization, deregulation, globalization, free trade, austerity, and reductions in government spending in order to increase the role of the private sector in the economy and society. And don't confuse neocons with neolibs. Neoliberals emphasize economic liberalism, free markets, and individual freedom. They believe in minimal government interference in the economy and support for deregulation, privatization, and free trade. Neolibs believe that the economy should be left to function on its own, and that government intervention in the economy will only lead to inefficiency and ineffectiveness. Some prominent neolibs are Michael Bloomberg, Bill Clinton, Al Gore, Alan Greenspan, Milton Friedman, Michael Kinsley, political journalism commentator and co-host of Crossfire, Margaret Thatcher, former Prime Minister of the UK, Ronald Reagan, President, any member of the Adam Smith Institute, and all followers of Ayn Rand. You may have noticed some overlaps between these generally undesirable groups. Yes, it is quite possible to be a neocon and a neolib at the same time, as you will see by a review of my lists above. Finally, this discussion would definitely not be complete without a mention of the globalists. They are generally disliked and often elitist individuals or groups that believe in the idea of a global community and the need for cooperation between nations to achieve common goals. They believe in the importance of international institutions and the need to promote global governance and cooperation. Sounds great so far, right? Globalists also tend to support free trade and the movement of people, goods and ideas across borders, perhaps sometimes to the detriment of their own countries or for some greater picture. I am not at all an exclusionist nor an elitist, God forbid, so if you disagree with my lists or want to add someone, let me know. Let me finish by discussing another group, the narcissists, who are easily confused with and who overlap with the elitists. But they are different in key ways. Narcissists and elitists, of course, at least superficially share some similarities in that they both have a high opinion of themselves and may be perceived as arrogant or entitled. Narcissism is officially recognized as a personality disorder, a mental health condition in which people have an unreasonably high sense of their own importance. They need and seek too much attention and want people to admire them. People with this disorder may lack the ability to understand or care about the feelings of others. but behind their mask of extreme confidence, they are not sure of their self-worth and are easily upset by the slightest criticism. The famous painting Narcissus by Caravaggio shows how one picture can save 1,000 words. You should definitely look it up on the internet. A narcissistic personality disorder causes problems within and between many areas of life, such as relationships, work, school, or financial matters. People with narcissistic personality disorder may be generally unhappy and disappointed when they're not given the special favors or admiration that they believe they deserve. They may find their relationships troubled and unfulfilling, and other people may not enjoy being around them. Narcissists have an excessive sense of self-importance and a deep need for admiration and attention. They often lack empathy and are willing to exploit others to get what they want. Narcissists may have an inflated sense of their own abilities and accomplishments, even if they are not backed up by evidence. Elitists, on the other hand, believe that they are part of an elite group that is superior to others. They may hold exclusive beliefs or values and have a sense of entitlement based on their perceived status or accomplishments. Elitists may not necessarily lack empathy or exploit others, but they may hold themselves above others based on their perceived superiority. Overall, while both narcissists and elitists may have a sense of superiority, I've found that narcissists tend to be more focused on themselves and their own needs, while elitists I have known seem to be more focused on the group they identify with or belong to. In summary, elitists believe in the rule of an elite class, neoconservatives believe in a strong national defense, neoliberals believe in minimal government intervention in the economy, globalists believe in the need for cooperation between nations to achieve common goals, which is arguably a reasonable view, but they fail, in my opinion, by tending to favour a more generalised approach to mankind and its problems, rather than a nation-specific viewpoint, thereby creating the possibility of weakening their home base. Knowing the differences and similarities between all these groups can be very helpful when engaging in political and socio-economic discourse. The details can be confusing at times, but it helps the formation of clear arguments and discussions to understand similarities and differences, to know exactly what we're talking about.